Hi, this is Bob from Hobby Concepts. Part 3 of my Tiger tank restore, rebuild, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to get the tank back in this shape. The most important part is I'm going to be programming this computer radio to work with this tank. So let's get started. Moving right along, I have figured out that I can mount this front plate and still work the gearboxes into place and mount the track links on the front. So I'm going to go ahead and mount this. Notice that I have cut away these areas for the fender, and I have built these nice photo etch fenders which will mount here, and I'm reinforced a little bit underneath with some plastic stripping, you can see right here, and I'm gonna do a little more reinforcement. So I'm gonna go ahead and mount this front plate, mount these fenders, and stipple it with the primer to rough up the surface a little bit, except on the fenders, and get that all mounted. I've also worked on the rear some. I've got photo etched rear fenders right here, and I cut a slot with a hot knife, and those will mount in here like that and give me my photo etched rear fenders. I made the decision I'm not going to use the Feifel air cleaners. I'm getting ready to get the Tiger back on its feet, and right now I'm going to take it in, I'm going to paint all this area down in here black as an undercoater, and then paint the yellow before I put the wheels back on. But I wanted to just give a look before I did that at some of the things I've done. You can see the Auber photo etch front fenders that are all mounted. I've got, these are the Auber photo etched hangers for the side wires. Might even be able to see these little Auber photo etched brackets for some handles. Got the rear fenders mounted. Auber even makes some screw covers to cover up some of the screws that bolted it together. And I've done the rear hatch. And the rear hatch, I've decided I'm going to leave the Feifel air cleaners off, so I switched to the later model air intake, and that's a Shumo Kits metal part. It's bolted on. I removed the hangers and just put some photo etch details on where those came off, and I remade the handles out of a piece of brass wire instead of the plastic. I think it looks better, plus it's stronger. So I'm going to spray some black paint on this, and then when I'm done I'll spray some dark yellow, and then I can get the wheels back on. And I'm going to show weathering the wheels before I put those on. I have sprayed the bottom of the tank hull black, and what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to spray it with the dark yellow, but I'm going to leave it real thin up underneath here so there's a lot of shadow effect. That way when you look into the tracks, it'll be very dark, a lot of shadow. It'll help make up for the fact that I'm not doing a lot of mudding and weathering in here. I'll probably do some, but with an RC tank I want to leave this pretty open. So I will let this dry for a few minutes, and then we'll spray the dark yellow on, and then I'm going to weather the wheels and put them back on. Time to weather up these wheels. I'm starting on the back side because if I screw it up it won't show. So I normally take a little bit of thinner, just plain old enamel thinner, and wet this. And then what I've got here is I have some Vallejo paint. I'm using dark rust and light rust are the two colors here in my palette. Once the thinner's on here, I'll just get some of this rubbed around the wheel, some of the dark, kind of highlight some of these points here, and then just brush that in with the same brush. and let it dry. It's important to note that these are sprayed with Tamiya lacquer. These are clear flat lacquer, because if you do this on unprotected paint, it'll take the paint off, so you got to be a little bit wary of that. And then here's one of my smooth road wheels, again the inside, so I'll just put some thinner on it. See, my brush has got a little bit of paint in there, and streak on a little bit of rust, a little bit of dark rust, and then just rub that around with my brush. And let it dry. So I'm going to do all the rest of these on the inside, and I'll show you what they look like, and then we'll do the outside of them. I've got the wheels all kind of weathered up. Turned out pretty good. Now I'm going to use some Tamiya. This is panel line color in brown, and I'm just going to get some of that on here. Brings out the highlights. I can put quite a bit of this on. Because you can always wipe it off, which is what I'm going to do. So get some on here and see how nicely that highlights the nuts and bolts. Get a paper towel here. Just blot up the excess. So I'm going to do the panel line color brown on all the wheels, and then I'll follow it up with panel line black. And it should pretty much give me what I'm looking for an effect. So back side here, see how that looks. This panel line color is great, it just kind of runs everywhere. The back obviously is not as important. Really don't see that much, but it really brings out those highlights. So I'll do the rest of the wheels, and then I'll get them installed on the tank. The wheels are all weathered up. They turned out, I think, really good. I finished up with a clear flat coat, so they're all sealed up and ready to install. I've also got the chassis here, and I sprayed that with the flat yellow, and you can see I left it very thin, so there's kind of a pattern, especially, and it's hard to see with my lights, but it's very thin up in here, so there's a lot of shadow effect when I put the wheels on. I think that'll look pretty good. I probably will put some powder in here to mud it up. So now I'm going to reinstall the wheels. Alright, time to install the road wheels. I'm going to start here in the back, and there's two different sets of road wheels. One that has two wheels on the inside and then two wheels on the outside. So we start back here with two wheels on the outside, and then we flip to the next one. Now these are staggered, so I'm not going to tighten a wheel until I get them all in, because you have to kind of wiggle a little bit to get them into place. Once they're in, they stay just fine, but it does take a little wiggling to get them into position. And then we will tighten them all when we're done here. Pretty easy to see how they all fit. Okay, that's how that looks. That looks pretty nice. I'll pull each set screw out and Loctite them. If you remember, when I got this tank, they were all loose because they hadn't been Loctited. So put a little Loctite on them, tighten these up and then do the other side. I've got my wheels mounted, both sides. Looks really good. I've got to, also I mounted this track piece on the front. Originally I said I was going to use some of the real track links, but when I put them up there I realized that there's numbers cast in on the back side, which doesn't matter when they're tracks, but up here they didn't look quite right. So I went ahead and used the piece that was included in the kit. I just did a little bit of light weathering on it now. I'll weather it up better later. So I want to get my gearboxes in, and they just will kind of wiggle into place here. You can't mount one and then wiggle the other one in, though. You've got to play with them a little more than that. Now I can bolt them in. So I'm going to bolt those in. They come from the bottom up. I'll bolt in the mounting plate for the electronics, and we'll see if we can get this running again. That didn't take very long. I've got the motors mounted in here, got the electronics mounting plate, and I threw some tracks on it. Now these tracks I painted them with my track paint, but they haven't been weathered yet because I'm going to do that last. And they're real easy to take on and off by just pulling the pins. So now the chassis is ready to run, and I can throw the electronics back in it and get all that working and test it, and then I can finish everything. So I'm really pleased with how it's turning out from basically a garage beater to a nice tank. So let's get those electronics in and get them working. Time to get my electronics back in. I've got this Turnigy TGY i6 radio. I use these a lot. If you've watched my other videos, you've probably seen that. So I'm going to go through programming this. I've got my DMD unit and my MFO1 unit. I did make a change. I changed to a Dean's plug just because I use Dean's plugs on all my batteries. I've got a couple batteries here for testing. The tank is up here out of the picture, but I'll bring it in later. It's sitting on a piece of wood so I can run the tracks. Got my speaker here ready. So I'm going to start with programming the radio. This radio is pretty easy to program. All you do is press the OK key and hold it down. Brings you into the two menus. We're going to use the system menu. We'll change the name first because that's an easy thing to do. So we go model name, OK, and then we're just going to call this Tiger 1. So we can go down here to the bottom menu and select the letter I. Okay, TI, same thing, we'll go to the letter G. So I'm going to just go through those and change this to Tiger 1, and we'll come back. In order to use this digital radio on our tank, we've got to do a couple setup features on this transmitter. Originally, these Tamiya control units were designed to be used with radios that had the sliding trim. This radio has digital trims like most new radios, and the theory was you want to put the gun up and the gun down. That was one function. Then you would put the trim all the way up, and then that function would turn into something else. In this case, it would fire the gun. Put the trim all the way down, it would fire the machine gun. Put the trim back in the middle, and it goes to work our original function again, raising and lowering the gun. So what I need to do is use the dual rate function on this radio to set that channel up. Additionally, I have to decide what channel I want each thing to do. In this case, I'm going to have this be my throttle, forward and backwards just like a car, and my steering right and left just like a car. This stick I will do left and right to operate the turret left and right, and this stick up and down will be elevating and lowering the gun, plus firing the machine gun and firing the main gun. So, a couple things we have to do. Turn the radio on, go into the menu, and go to the setup menu. Press OK. Go down to the display. Now, the display shows me which stick does which channel. So, I want my throttle, or my steering, to be on channel 1. So I take the channel 1 lead from the DMD unit and put it into channel 1. Now I want my throttle to be on this channel, and that's channel 3. On this unit, the lead for the throttle is marked channel 2. So we're going to plug that into channel 3, because remember, we want that to be our steering. Okay, I want our gun up and down to be on this one, which is channel 2, and the main gun here is marked channel 3. So we'll plug it into channel 2. Okay, and the turret rotation is going to be on channel 4. So I'm going to plug that into channel 4. So that gives us connected the way we want. Okay, now I want to set up the dual rates. Remember, I want this stick here to have my gun up and down. Then I want to be able to flip that and have the gun firing. So I go into the setup menu. I go down to dual rates. I switch to channel 2. And then I'm going to lower that rate to 75. Okay, I want to save that, so I press and hold the cancel button. Now, I go back to my display, and this stick, now, see, it doesn't go all the way to the end? It only goes 75% of the travel. When I flip this, now it goes all the way to the end. See it right there. So with this switch up, the gun will go up and down. With this switch down, it will now fire the guns. So that's how you set up the dual rates. Back out to our menu, and now I'm going to plug this unit into some power and see how everything works. I've plugged in my MF01 and DMD into 2 batteries I had laying around. I got my transmitter turned on, and receivers plugged in, and I've got the speaker plugged in. So when I turn the switch on, we should have some sound. Okay, so everything's working. You saw I can adjust the sound volume with this little dial right here. So now we know this unit is working, and now it's time to map the unit to the transmitter, and I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to unplug the speaker because it's going to make a lot of noise if I leave it on. One thing I like about this transmitter is it also shows the receiver battery power here in both voltage and a little percentage here, so you can always tell if your batteries in your tank are good. It has telemetry back and forth. To map this, you follow the mapping procedure in the manual right here. So you push the set button and these lights change, and then according to this we move the left stick from up to down, the right stick from right to left, the right stick from up to down, and the left stick from right to left, and then we push the button again. And that should map this to this transmitter. So we're all set. I'm going to hook the motors up and see if we have some motor power. Workbench is a little crowded right now. Got my transmitter all set up and turned on. Flip the tank on. Make sure my lights are working. So this should give me throttle. Yay! Forward and reverse. And when I put it in forward, if I steer, okay, that works like it's supposed to. I think we've got everything all set. I can mount some of these electronics in the tank. I'll test the turret elevation and rotation motors. and then move on to the next part, which will be assembling the top deck. One last test before I install everything. I want to make sure that my dual rate switch works with the gun and the sounds and the machine gun sounds and the elevation. I tested the motors and they work fine. This is going to have some sound to it, so we'll turn the tank on. Should have our engine startup sound. Okay, we should have gun elevation noises, and those work great. I flip my dual rate switch, and we have the firing noises. Notice when I shoot the gun, watch the tracks. You can see the tracks give a little jump. That way the tank, when it fires the main gun, it actually jerks. The main gun also will recoil. So everything's working great. This eBay tank has turned out to be a great buy. All the electronics work fine. I'm going to go ahead and get all this stuff installed in the tank, which mainly just is sticking it in. And then we'll go back to work on the tank. Moving right along, I've got my top deck ready to put on. I reinstalled the wheels, reinstalled the gearbox, reinstalled this hatch. I had to make a couple of little tabs here to keep it from falling out, and glued those on. So the top, I also put the machine gun in and plugged it in. So the top just fits in by sliding on the back here. And then two tabs in the front hold it in. Okay, that lays down pretty nicely. There's two screws here I'm going to go ahead and install in a minute. This opens up just fine. Also, I got these really nice photo etched grills from Voyager, and they mount here. Later model tanks, they installed them all so grenades wouldn't go down in through the engine grills. So I'm going to cut these out and install them. I'm going to mount this down and then get ready to put the turret on. I'm not going to do all the detailing right now, just want to get everything put back together mainly and see if the turret and the gun works okay. So that's my mission for the rest of today. Well, you can see these Voyager photo etched engine grates. They really look nice. So I'm glad I put those on. Now it's time to get the turret put together. I've got my mantle. I added the piece back on here. And I've got my barrel. Looking at this barrel, there's a pretty good seam in it. So I have just decided to replace it with this exquisite Stella Models aluminum barrel, and it looks just beautiful, fits perfect, much stronger. The barrel parts fit right on. Absolutely no difference in how it works. The flash unit slides right up inside of it. I also have a Stella Models, the flash hider. So I'm going to get that put together. We'll get it in the turret and see how that goes. I've installed the turret, and you can see the mechanisms. Pretty straightforward. Everything mounted just like the instructions. The aluminum barrel clamped right in, no problem. So we'll do a little test here. Power up my transmitter. Turn on the tank. Okay, so we can see it's running. We should have our forward and reverse just like before. Steering. Now, when I flip the switch here, we should have machine gun. And I should have the main gun firing. So you can see the flash, you can see the barrel recoil, you can see the tank jump. Flip the switch again, and then it becomes elevation. And then turret rotation. Switch here and the tank will shut down. So everything works like it's supposed to. The top just fits in place here. I may add a few little magnets for that. So that's going to be the end of part 3 here. In the next part I'm going to finish the surface detailing and do the painting, and probably the last part I'll do the weathering and the final touch-up, because I have to take the tracks back off. So far, it looks just fantastic. Quite a difference from the tank I pulled out of the box a few weeks ago. Alright, so thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel. In part 4, let's see, probably be, I don't know, 3-4 days. We'll get working on it. Thanks for watching.